bro, do you think I want to sit in this fucking country any longer?
He's got 4 obstruction of business, all of which he's pled guilty to, 2 minor offenses act, both of which he's pled guilty to, and he's pending the deepfakes. Really, this is about the deepfakes. And he's facing currently 12 years max under the guideline.
Apparently, Johnny Somali, isn't it funny how he's generated more laughs and better content for people by going to jail than doing anything else in his entire life? This guy has constantly been content just for being functionally fucking retarded.
For a nuisance streamer, survival is a game of timing and escape. Everything hinges on one thing: the ability to vanish before the backlash catches up, hit hard, rake in the views, then disappear. Move fast, stay untouchable. Ramsey Khalid Ismail, better known online as Johnny Somali, perfected this hit-and-run playbook, turning chaos into clicks and controversy into currency. But even the slickest escape plan can fail. And in South Korea, his luck ran out. On October 29, 2025, Ismail stepped into the Seoul Central District Court, probably expecting some loophole or miracle. Instead, he walked out facing a brutal, cold reality. 7 active criminal charges now pinned him down, with 0 escape routes left. His usual tricks, trying to settle with other streamers like Young Man to shrink the legal pile from 8 charges to 7, even begging the judge for an expedited exit, were crushed. Every move he thought would save him, every strategy for a quick getaway, hit a dead end. Now he's caught, locked in a legal system that could not care less about his millions of followers, staring down the barrel of a possible decade behind bars. How does chasing viral clicks turn into an inescapable trap? The answer is buried in the transcripts of one catastrophic Tuesday afternoon. This is the autopsy of a content pest that finally ran into a brick wall. To grasp the full weight of the October 29th hearing, we need to break down the exact content that dragged Somali into this mess. Forget watching viral clips for laughs or likes. This is how the prosecution sees them: a detailed, unflinching inventory of evidence. Every prank, every stunt, every chaotic moment now reads like a strike-by-strike indictment, and each one piles more heat onto him. As the trial kicked off, the prosecution came out swinging with 8 serious charges against Somali. Make no mistake, these weren't vague complaints about online toxicity or internet trolling that get shrugged off in comment sections. These were hard, concrete violations under the South Korean Penal Code, each one carrying real-world consequences. The first cluster of charges, 4 counts of business disruption, hit at the core of his chaotic content style. Every stunt, every uninvited intrusion into private establishments, every unsanctioned spectacle he pulled for views, now formed the backbone of the case.
Your Honor, can I speak? I want to ask you if there's any way that we could do expedited trial, because I've already been here for over 1 year in travel ban. I have family, I have obligations in America, and I want to have the right to a speedy trial.
I feel understand your situation, but more things happen to other alien defendants who have been around in this country for more than 2 years for pending trials.
What once seemed like harmless viral content was now weaponized as legal evidence. And each act stacked another layer of trouble on it. The most explosive example laid out in the court record centers on Lloyd World, a massive amusement park where Somali allegedly forced a ride to an emergency halt. According to reports, the prosecution claims this stoppage lasted over 30 minutes, wreaking havoc on both operations and finances. In a telling look at the defense's floundering strategy, they've already admitted guilt for the act itself, but are now arguing the ride only stopped for 10 to 15 minutes. Splitting hairs like this shows they completely misunderstand how the court sees it. The exact duration doesn't matter. The disruption wasn't a side effect of the content. The disruption was the content itself. On top of that, Somali faced 2 misdemeanor charges for public nuisance and disorderly conduct. In the streaming world, these are often brushed off like costs of doing business, almost like paying for parking. But the real firestorm comes from the 2 most serious counts, deepfake-related charges. These allege he created and distributed non-consensual, synthetic, obscene imagery aimed at another creator. These charges are what escalate this from a simple deportation risk into a nightmare scenario with years behind bars looming. Under South Korea's legal framework, which has recently cracked down hard on digital crimes, this wasn't just some privacy slip or online drama. It was serious business. The law treats offenses like these with brutal severity.
Right to say you should have kids. Your father was right. As the trial phase began, the prosecution had leveled 8 distinct charges against the defendant.
This was the full weight hitting the defendant as he stepped into the courthouse. 8 charges stacked against him, with legal experts estimating a maximum cumulative sentence of around 12 years. Even on the low end, a realistic minimum of 2 years loomed. The golden age of wild, unchecked international streaming had officially ended. The tribunal was now in motion, and there was no turning back. Before we dive into the courtroom chaos, it's important to see Ismail for who he really is. Johnny Somali's online persona screams wealth, freedom, and endless travel, fueled by donations and hype, but the truth is far bleaker. Trial records paint a picture of a man who is anything but rich. Reports indicate he's living in a cramped bunk bed setup, completely dependent on another streamer, known as Hank, allegedly. Ismail owes this benefactor upwards of $30,000. This financial desperation isn't just background. It explains his every move in court. He isn't only fighting for freedom, he's fighting for survival. Trapped in a foreign country, cut off from the only way he knows how to make money, facing mounting legal bills and debts, his lavish online persona now clashes brutally with a reality of poverty and dependence.
I have autism. I have autism. I have autism.
Stepping into the courtroom on October 29th, his defense team seemed to lean on a strategy built around attrition and a twisted kind of mutual assured destruction, as if daring the system to break him first. The defendant wasn't just sitting back taking the hits, he was wading into the chaos himself. Somali pushed his own countercharges against a fellow streamer named Youngman, accusing him of an assault involving a baton during a previous live stream showdown. In the week before the trial, the two reportedly struck a tactical deal. Johnny Somali would drop his assault claim, and in return, Youngman would drop 3 unspecified countercharges against him. On paper and probably in Somali's head, this looked like a small victory, a way to trim down the chaotic docket. His defense counsel formally presented this settlement to the judge right after the session began at just after 2 p.m. But beneath the surface, this maneuver had glaring weaknesses. First, while the deal sliced the raw number of charges from 8 down to 7, it did nothing to touch the deepfake allegations, the ones carrying the heaviest prison time. Somali was bailing water out of a sinking boat while ignoring the massive hole in the hull. Even worse, he gave up his only real leverage. By dropping the assault charge, where video evidence clearly showed him being chased and attacked, he lost the ability to paint himself as a victim of the chaos he once claimed to survive. Now he was left with 7 charges, 0 bargaining chips, and a panel of judges ready to show exactly how little tolerance they had for more theatrics. October 29th unfolds almost like a slow-motion cinematic collision between the influencer's warped sense of reality and the court's rigid enforcement of law. The atmosphere in Seoul Central District Court was icy, strictly formal, a brutal contrast to the wild, uncontrolled streams Somali usually thrived in. At 1:51 p.m., the prosecutor entered, immediately setting up technical equipment and hooking a massive monitor into the court system. This wasn't decoration. It was a clear signal. Somali's own streams, created for clicks and chaos, were about to be weaponized as evidence. When Somali and his entourage finally arrived at 1:59 p.m., the cultural clash hit instantly.
Yeah, I need to pay the fine. There is an absence paper. I can send the absence paper, they said. The fine is 5,000 Australian dollar maximum, I think. That's too much. Seriously, too much.
The swagger and spectacle of street streaming met the cold, disciplined order of the courtroom, and the tension was almost tangible. This was the moment his online world collided with real-world consequences, and there was no escaping the judgment that was about to unfold. The deal might have reduced some paperwork, but it did nothing to shield Somali from the bigger storm. The courtroom was still a pressure cooker, and this settlement was barely a bandage on a wound that was only getting deeper. While Ismail and his associate Hank wore black suits in an attempt at courtroom decorum, Somali still strolled in carrying a backpack and a Starbucks cup in a Western courtroom that might seem casual or harmless, but in the rigid, almost sterile atmosphere of a Korean tribunal, it screamed disrespect and a glaring lack of situational awareness. A small detail maybe, but one that set the tone for the rest of the day. At 2:30 p.m., the session officially began. The judge read out the case number and called Ramzi Khaled Ismail to the stand. After submitting the settlement paperwork regarding Youngman, the defense suddenly pivoted into a high-stakes, almost baffling argument over the deepfake charges. Court transcripts show that the defense did not deny the creation or distribution of the synthetic materials. The act itself was undeniable, probably etched permanently across blockchain or archive servers for eternity. Instead, they focused on intent and impact. The lawyer argued that Somali had no intent to cause harm. Even more shockingly, they claimed that the materials could not humiliate or shame anyone, and therefore couldn't cause actual harm. It was a bold, almost reckless gamble, a legal Hail Mary that might be seen as either genius or desperation under intense scrutiny. While Ismail and his associate Hank wore black suits to mimic courtroom decorum, Somali strolled in with a backpack and a Starbucks cup. In a Western setting, that might pass unnoticed, but in the rigid, almost sterile atmosphere of a Korean tribunal, it screamed disrespect and a serious lack of situational awareness. A small detail, maybe, but one that set the tone for what was about to unfold. At 2:30 p.m., the session was called to order. The judge read out the case number and summoned Ramzi Khaled Ismail to the stand. After submitting the settlement paperwork regarding Youngman, the defense pivoted into a high-stakes, almost baffling argument over the deepfake charges. Court transcripts reveal that the defense did not deny the creation or distribution of the synthetic materials. The act itself was irrefutable, likely preserved forever on blockchain or server archives. Instead, they focused on intent and impact. The lawyer claimed Somali had no intention to harm. Shockingly, they argued that the specific materials could not humiliate or shame anyone, asserting they couldn't cause real damage. It was a bold, perhaps desperate gamble, a legal Hail Mary that risked everything. The shift in her demeanor was tracked in real time. The stark realization that the real world could reach her in Australia, financially, if not physically, instantly changed the stakes. While she didn't appear in court on October 29th, the possibility of her future testimony hung over Ismail like a sword of Damocles, threatening to cut through any defense strategy. The most revealing moment of the hearing, the one that truly exposed Somali's lack of awareness about his precarious position, came near the end. After almost 2 hours of testimony, much of it held in private to protect sensitive witnesses, the court was preparing to adjourn with the next date set for February 2026. Then, Somali broke protocol. He stood up, bypassing his lawyers, and directly addressed the judge, pleading for an expedited trial and a speedy resolution, citing family obligations back in America. It was a desperate move, born from a fundamental misunderstanding. He still saw himself as a tourist with a delayed return ticket, not a criminal defendant facing multiple serious charges. The judge's response was immediate, blunt, and final. Leaving the courthouse, Somali's frustration boiled over. Witnesses report he lashed out at onlookers and other streamers, documenting the scene. A flash of his old volatility piercing the polished veneer of the black suit reality was setting in. His content-fueled adventure had officially turned into a long-term residency. In trying to fast-track the legal system, he only cemented his extended stay. The next court date is now officially set for February 11th, 2026, and there's no escaping it. That's nearly 4 months of dead time, 4 months where he's trapped, barred from leaving the country, 4 months where he can't produce the international travel chaos content that made him infamous. The irony is brutal. A career built on forcing himself into other people's lives, pulling unwilling participants into his videos for clicks, is now flipped. He's on the receiving end, facing a system with endless patience and zero interest in his follower. Count Johnny Somali wanted South Korea's full attention. Now he has it. So what should be done with Somali? Will being locked up actually change him? Did the Korean judges deliver a verdict strong enough? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more wild updates on Johnny Somali and other chaotic creators.